contracted out, and it's being sold through different chains and everything for $2, but it won't puncture a can. It won't get around one can all the way without remove the whole top. It's of no insufficient quality. Okay. Well, now instead, it's conducive to build that can because we don't have the artificial inflation of costs, and we can do it right. Because the right job is the can opener that does the job for the least cost for the longest amount of time. That's the real equation.
So you're saying it would obliterate planned obsolescence?
Yeah, and in fact, probably not all planned obsolescence is such a crime as we believe, and in some cases it's probably a worse crime than we know of, too, But planned obsolescence is unavoidable under usury, under the money changer's purported economy. There's no way that you can't you can avoid cheapening your production because your market can't bear, sustaining you against further indebtedness. And even if you're not assuming further debt, you're paying further costs and everything else that you're doing. And so, that $35,000 home built in 1963 is $1 million house now. So said, should be costing you $17 a month, and under mathematically perfected economy, and it's costing you whatever, $10,000. It's preposterous, and so you can't escape, the consequences, even if you never borrowed any money or whatever, you're paying it. You're paying it in every dollar that you exchange. There isn't a dollar out there that's innocent of debt, that isn't, that every part of it as a dollar isn't, ever more so dedicated to sustaining, servicing debt rather than sustaining the industry that's obligated to do so. It's a recipe for disaster, every one of them. And it's a lie. I mean, the original, notes were issued. They used to say, we'll pay to the bearer on demand $10. Well, what does that mean? In other words, they were issued under this gold standard, and they actually represented an obligation to redeem them in gold. Okay, and so the Ron Paul people claim that so they just violated the gold standard and resorted to a fractional reserve policy. Well, not exactly at all. And so these people advocate actually elevated rates of interest, discouraging us from borrowing more, which in fact actually compel us to borrow more to maintain a vital circulation, thus multiplying artificial indebtedness by a higher rate of interest, which is the factor by which it's multiplied, thus ensuring failure all the sooner. I mean, I've had YouTube models so that I've explained it for many years, and these people just want to go back to the gold standard. Okay, well, why does interest inherently, destroy a gold standard? And they used to say, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable in lawful money. It's not lawful money, and is redeemable in lawful money at the United States Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. Do you find any original Federal Reserve note that says that right on it? And one day they just quit publishing that
I'm looking at that right now.
One day they quit publishing that promise. And why? Well, this is inevitable when you have a central banking system and the currency subject to interest. Obfuscated debts to the banking system, which are not debts to the banking system at all. They're actually obligations to pay the debt off by retiring the payment from circulation. And why does this inherently destroy a gold standard? Because if you issue money into circulation, you have to maintain that circulation to continue servicing the debt subject to interest, and so the debt multiplies. And the first thing that you did was you collateralized the principal with the property, and then you don't have that. And the next thing you knew, you're having to lie, and that's what derivatives are. They're false claims to have assets that you don't have. And why do you have to do that? Because the central banking system makes you do that. It requires collateralization that doesn't exist in the very next level of borrowing beyond the original principal. Just to maintain a vital circulation, you're required to look for everything else for collateral. And next thing you know, you've borrowed against everything.
Yep.
You see?
And you're all out.
Then you've borrowed beyond it. And then you've borrowed beyond that yet. Yep. You see? And so interest inherently destroys a gold standard. And that's what's so stupid about these people claiming that a gold standard is going to save us and advocating higher interest rates will save us at the same time. Mutually exclusive ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have an American $1 bill, a United States of America $1 bill here in my hand. Interestingly, though, just to skip back a little bit, just a little thing I noticed. At the inauguration, Obama, he said, "I do solemnly swear, yada, 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 to the United States." He didn't say the United States of America. And nobody seemed to pick that up.
That's because I wasn't watching.
Well, I made a YouTube video about it and I put it out there. And what I did was then I went on YouTube and I started looking at the presidential oaths from previous presidents. None of them say United States of America. Not one. Isn't that interesting? You see, I'm a details guy. Like you, Mike, I'm a details. I spot things, you know. And I go, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Well, where's the birth certificate?
Yeah, well, I don't even think I want to get into that one.
Right.
But, yeah, but I mean...
I was born in Kenya. Did you know that?
You were born where?
In Kenya. But I got a birth certificate from Berkeley, California. It only cost $50. You tell 2 lies and you get one. I'm kidding you.
I got it afterwards.
I when these guys, every time there's an election, I keep tabs on all the candidates, and I've presented mathematically perfected economy to most of the candidates. I mean, Ross Perot has heard about it. I've had best friend of Jerry Brown, Professor Montana Padva from the Santa Rosa State, introduced me to Jerry Brown personally to present him papers that I prepared for weeks on mathematically perfected economy. I mean, I no sooner walked into the Brown campaign offices and leaned over the reception desk, and I said, I'm Mike Montagne. I had a nonprofit corporation. It was called Universal Prosperity at the time. I was president and founder of Universal Prosperity, and I wanted to talk about mathematically perfected economy. That is a 2-part thesis that any economy based on interest-bearing debt ultimately terminates itself under insoluble debt, and that there is one and one only solution to the categoric faults of inflation, deflation, systemic manipulation of the cost or value of money or property, an inherent artificial and therefore terminal multiplication of artificial by artificial indebtedness. And anyway, about a half a dozen people were scooting by in different directions with armfuls of paper, and they all put on the brakes right then. And one of them was Jerry Brown's national campaign chairman. Can't remember her name offhand. She was really great. And just to give you an idea, I mean, this is a typical reaction. This is a more positive one. I'll give you the negative one after this. I'll give you Ron Paul's people, and it's great. It's hysterical, actually. I already told part of it. Anyway, they all put on the brakes, and so I explained how a currency subject to interest can only multiply artificial indebtedness and this obfuscation of the currency, and I quoted Jefferson and Franklin and told this parable of perfect economy right off the top of my head. And I mean, in 15 minutes, these people's heads are swimming, and this woman who ran and she was great. She really was. She says, we're having a national meeting tonight. We've got campaign managers from all over the country, about 300 people flying in for a meeting here in just a couple hours. Would you be interested in staying and speaking? And I said, absolutely, And so here I am dressed in a pair of cowboy boots and jeans and a wool shirt, and they've got to set up this really large office, more like an auditorium, and they had hundreds of seats to put out, and so all these people were just dying to know about this, and so I volunteered to help and drag all these chairs out and unfold them, and we're talking about mathematically perfected economy, kind of shouting it across the room, so that everybody can hear. These people, I got so many fans just like that, it wasn't even funny. And they all sat down with me in the back row as this meeting begins at, 6 in the evening. And these people had flown in from a long way, and they were tired and haggard when they got there, and they'd been working hard all the time anyway. And, you're talking about people that are getting pretty run down. And anyway, this meeting went on and on and on, and, it got to, I don't know what it was, 10:30 at night. It was pretty boring stuff, hard to stay awake with anyway. And then this campaign manager lady, she takes the podium and goes to close down the meeting. And I'm thinking, holy shit, I stayed here to speak, and I could give a crap about anything that you had to say. I'm sorry. But anyway, I stood up instantly. Excuse me, you asked me to speak, but at the same time that I raised my hand, all these people in the whole back row of the auditorium, wait, you were going to have Mike speak here. And these people have all given me their business cards and invited me to political party gatherings and all kinds of stuff already. I got a bunch of fans. And anyway, so she apologizes over the microphone and asked me to, I'm already hurrying to the podium, and she introduces me and tells what I'm going to speak about. And as I get to the podium, she sort of whispers to me with her head turned away. She says, keep it under 3 minutes. They'll go to sleep on you. You lose them. And I thought, oh, great. 3 minutes. So I basically started it out as I'd come in. I said, I said who I was, and that I was author of this theory of mathematically perfected economy, and that any economy subject to interest ultimately terminates itself under insoluble debt. And the whole audience shifts in its chairs and straightens up. And next thing you know, I've taken 5 minutes, and I'm seeing more interest than ever. And I'm not going to cut this short. If somebody falls out of the chair onto the floor, I'll stop, But anyway, make a long story short, this thing went on for longer than I can tell you after that. And for longer than you'd expect. And I had a whole audience just clamoring for answers with questions and everything. And so finally I said, after I answered quite a few questions, I said, listen, I'll stay here and answer your questions all night long. But, some of you want to go home. Some of you might not be interested in this. So I think we should break for a second and allow people to leave. And if the chairwoman doesn't mind, I'll use the podium to address your needs. Because these people are suddenly hopeful that Jerry Brown is going to run on a platform of mathematically perfected economy. And guess what? Nobody left. And so we answered questions, and then they asked me to come out and introduce myself personally so they could introduce themselves personally to me. And we mixed for a long time. And this thing ended late in the night, in the morning. And anyway, so I'm asked to prepare papers to present to Jerry Brown personally. Montana, Padva, buys Jerry Brown wouldn't do the $1,000 plate dinners, but he'd do $500 plate dinners. And Montana bought a $500 plate dinner at a Japanese restaurant in San Francisco. And part of the curriculum was for him to personally introduce me to Jerry Brown in front of the audience to present mathematically